Welcome to something a little bit different here at loosetooth.com studio. I'm going to demonstrate flower arranging. So I often, as you probably picked up on, I really love having fresh flowers in my videos surrounding me at home and in the background in my tutorials, all that good stuff. So I just returned from a short trip. I headed to my local grocery, which has a gorgeous selection of flowers today. And I picked up 2 bouquets and a third type of flower. And I'm going to demonstrate how I take store mixed bouquets and split them up and rearrange them. Because I think a lot of times what happens is somebody takes a bouquet like this and you simply cut the plastic off, cut the rubber bands off, pop them into a vase, and wonder, why doesn't it look so nice? So we will talk about how to make this, which already has some gorgeous flowers in it, look even better with some simple arranging. So really simply, all I have is a vase. Now, there is some stuff to know about vases, but some of this kind of comes along with experience. The biggest thing is making sure you have a vase big enough for the amount of flowers you have, and that the neck of the vase, the opening of the vase, is kind of the right proportions for what you want to do. This came from a set of 3 vases from IKEA. I love how simple it is. It's just super basic. And I know that I've got enough flowers here that I can make a nice arrangement here. But that's something to consider. And I think we'll leave it at that for now. It could be another video about frogs. Frogs are little things that help you arrange, how to use tape as a frog, another video. But for now, we've got a vase. What I've got is a little bit of warmish water with 1 packet of plant food dissolved in it. So you don't want the water to be hot, you don't want it to be cold. Go, a couple steps north of or higher than lukewarm, and make sure you dissolve the plant food in that. But I don't fill it up very high. One thing is, you might be knocking around. If you knock it over, you don't spill so much. But you can, it's just, your flowers are going to raise that water level. So why not keep it low? And then when you're done, you can just top off the water level. So in this case, I've got a little over an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter of water. So I've got the vase, I got a little bit of water, got the plant food dissolved. I also have scissors. Now these are decommissioned fabric scissors. So any sewers out there, please do not panic to see a pair of Fiskars. These are old scissors that are no longer used on fabric. So I've got them here in my studio for things like flowers. Now, like I said, in this particular case, I've got 2 bouquets. First, I picked out this one, which I really love, this decorative kale in the center. That's the thing that caught my eye. And I love these little white, I don't know the names of anything, so this is not or very little. So this is not a plant identification video. We've got a lily here, we've got kale here, we've got some greens, we got these pink guys, I don't even know what they are, these little sweet little white kind of buttony guys in this bouquet. Now, also, if you do have an eagle eye, you'll notice that nearly all of my arrangements tend to be white, green, and yellow. Favorite colors, they're the colors of my company's brand, so I tend to stick with those. Here we've got some pinks, and I'm like, you know what, those are some sweet pinks, but we will see if they stay in or not, because I am so single-minded about that. This is one of the bouquets of the week. I don't even know what they're called. It just says CB of the week. And what I picked this specifically was these are nice and long. So I'll point this out in a moment, but there's kind of different categories of flowers that tend to make up a nice, robust bouquet. And then the lovely lady behind the floral counter was putting out these gorgeous yellow bouquets. So you can see all the gorgeousness in there. And we've got some greens, we've got some daisies. Those are the light yellow guys. These are called billy balls. It's like Crespadidity something. These are one of my favorites. I absolutely love these. And these are huge too. I like that we've got this green furry guy. I like that there's a lot of different textures. There's even like a calla lily in there. So again, I'm just looking at what are the colors, what are the shapes, what's attractive to me. And yeah, so that's what we have to work with to make a big, beautiful bouquet here. And so very simply, and I'll probably fast forward to this because it's not terribly interesting and it's noisy. First thing I'm going to do is simply cut open the plastic and any wrapping that's there and cut off the rubber bands. And then what I'll do is I'm actually going to kind of separate the bouquets so I can see exactly what makes up each of those bouquets. So to demonstrate just what is within one bouquet, so this is the yellow bouquet sort of separated. Now, very often they will give you different items in pairs, and this helps with creating symmetry in your bouquet. So when I'm separating a bouquet, I'm looking at three things. What's the color? What's the shape? And how many of them do I have? So in this case, there is one, I think these are calla lilies, one yellow calla lily. We've got 3 stems of these nice roundish sort of leaves and those greens. We've got 2 stems of this, I always think this looks like ragweed. I don't even know if this is what ragweed looks like. Again, not a plant identification person. When I see this, here you can see you've got lots of little itty, teeny tiny flowers, and they're very full. So if you go kind of, against this white background, you can see that this is something I think of as like filler because it really takes up a lot of great space. Definitely something like this lily is a great accent because 1, there's one of them, but 2, it's a very distinct shape. And usually greens in general you kind of think of as kind of filling elements as well. There's this great green ball. I always think this looks like a sea creature or algae. Again, florists are going to laugh at me because I don't know the names of anything. The billy balls, there's 2 of these guys. There is 1 little stem of itty bitty pale carnation. There are two of these stems. These are, I think they're called alamestra. And these actually are pretty closed up and they're a nice green color. This just happens to be, this is a flower that's really easy to find, usually really reasonably priced. It's not my favorite because usually it's like these reddish brownish colors and there's like purple. Not my favorite colors, and also because there's a lot of like pattern and detail in the flower itself. My favorite flower ever is a tulip, especially just like plain bright tulips. Something like these billy balls, awesome because they're really bright and simple. So personally, these aren't my first pick. But what I like about these is, again, it's something that's got some of that kind of branchy filler kind of feel to it. And definitely these greens will look gorgeous with the rest of the greens. So if these were striking and really purple, I'd probably pull them out of this particular bouquet, just, based on taste. And then we've got 2 really nice stems of daisies. I noticed one of these was looking a little beat up, so I may not put that front and center. So I see this one is not looking its greatest, but that's okay. And again, daisies are nice. These kind of daisies, Gerber daisies, tend to be one single stalk, like this lily. But this kind of daisy is nice because you've got all these different flowers on one stem. Again, it has a nice fill element to it. And then these great kind of berries. And it's unique to find, usually you find like white or pink or like a deep red color. I like that these are kind of like a light yellowish green. So it's just a pretty color. That definitely goes beautifully with this whole arrangement. So I don't have a huge amount of space here, but I think what I'm still going to do is do the same thing I did with this bouquet with the second bouquet, that I can see exactly what I have to fit into this vase. So again, I'll probably fast forward through this noisy part, but you'll definitely get, you'll know exactly what's happening, the kind of thing that's happening while I'm doing that. So here we go. Also, I live in a household where the cat chews rubber bands, so I'm super, super careful not to let my cats get the rubber bands. And that's a huge thing to know in general, is what is pet safe. For instance, lilies tend to be poisonous to cats. I'm lucky that I have to correct this, my cat I've had for 11 years, aside from chewing on like grassy kind of things, doesn't really mess with my plants, which is really, really lucky. We've got a new young cat that is sort of, the jury's out still. So he's still a little rambunctious, so I keep the flowers at the studio right now. But definitely keep that in mind as you are working with flowers and plants, is what's going to be safe for your pets, your cats and dogs. So quickly, in this second bouquet that I've sort of deconstructed, there's fewer elements in this one. We've got one big stem that has a white lily. So it hasn't opened yet, but it looks like, oh, it looks like that one fell apart. This one hasn't opened, but we've got a white lily. We've got a nice branchy kind of one piece of this guy. We've got, I wish we had a couple stems of this. I really like whatever this little guy is. These little sort of like white buttony guys. And then two more branches of bigger round leaves, so very similar to the round leaves that were in this first one. And then this is the accent. This is the centerpiece for me. Like, I love this. This is why I got so excited, was this huge decorative kale. And then a smattering, so it looks like about 9 stems of these pink guys. And these pink guys have pretty much one flower per stem. So lastly, I'm just going to open up this extra guy, which, like I said, I picked because it's got such a nice long element. So I'm thinking of different shapes. So basically, if I look at everything I have here, I'm thinking in terms of, again, color, and with shape, I'm thinking of things that are, what are very vertical, long elements like this, which things are much rounder, certainly this giant kale, but definitely things like these pink guys. And then I'm also thinking about what are things that are very bushy and fillery, and I have a lot of great stuff with this between the greens and some of the small stuff like this, and also to a certain extent these light daisies act as filler because they have got so much branches going on. So now I've got all my fodder for my arrangement. Now the first step I do is I kind of create a crisscrossy base layer of things that are filler. And the reason I'm doing that is that I'm giving myself kind of like a crown or a base that goes kind of on the underside of the arrangement. So this is the stuff that makes it feel very full, that isn't necessarily the accent pieces. So in this case, I'm definitely going to pull out things like these greens, and as I work, I'm doing two things. One, I'm kind of thinking about what's the height and what's the placement. So in general, what you want to do is whenever you are, you want to trim the stems, one, so that it's a new cut and the flower or plant material will be better at drinking up the water in the vase. But two, you're also changing the length of the stem so that you have the right kind of height that you want in the arrangement. But what you want to do is actually cut at an angle. So you're making, I don't know if that'll show up, but basically instead of cutting perpendicular to the stem, you want to cut at an angle because that gives more surface area for that flower to drink up that water. So as you go, usually I just have one pair of scissors in my hand here. As you go, you want to keep trimming at an angle. Now, I've got a lot of experience with, kind of guesstimating how long something is, so I don't get too worried about, holding it up, but that's definitely a very, very easy way to do this, we'll take these 3 stems from this first guy, is to kind of go, okay, if I hold this up to the vase, you can see it's much taller than the other ones. I'll trim a little off and get the right length or the right height, depending on how you want to think about it. So what I'm doing is right now we have 4 stems, and there's basically 2 big ones here and 2 smaller ones here. I am a huge symmetry freak. I am always going to default to symmetry. And what's nice about that is you can get, it's an easy thing to work around. Like I said, a lot of times things are in pairs for that reason. Also, in certain cases, you want odd numbers when you have like 3 different kind of accents. We don't really have a whole lot of that going on here, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. So what I'm doing is I'm crisscrossing the stems down here, and I'm crisscrossing the stems in the vase so that it's giving me spaces to tuck the other stems into. So this is a big wide opening in on the vase, which means everything, if you just plop them into the vase, they're just going to spread out. They're just going to fall. Gravity's going to do its business. They're going to fall to the edges. But when you crisscross the stems in the vase, that gives you spaces to be able to fit other stems. Now these particular greens do not have, these stems aren't super thick. So it's not, it's not like they're super stable, but that's totally fine. Now, normally what I do is if I knew I had a really strong element that I wanted to work around, I may put that into the vase next. Here's the deal. This guy is massive and it's also really heavy. So if I tried to place this in here, it would just flop. So I want to make sure that I don't add this element until I've got a lot more flowers in the vase to kind of prop it up. And it also has a massively thick stem. So I have to see if I can actually cut this with my scissors, or do I have to work with this element, this height, because I simply can't get any of it off the bottom. So I'm going to try here. We'll see what we get. Sometimes this works. Looks like it's working. Yipes. Okay. So I again cut that at an angle, made it a little shorter, and now I can see that that's a pretty nice height to act as an accent in the center of the bouquet. May trim that down a little more depending on where we're at in a few moments. In this particular case, usually I have a bigger workspace and I set things to the side. In this particular case, because I'm in the studio and there's no cats, I'm just dropping the extra stuff off to the side. So now we've got these basic stems here, and usually when I'm working with an arrangement, I'm gearing it towards me, so I'll probably arrange a lot of these pieces and then turn it around so you can see it. So now I'm going to do these alamestra, if that's what they're called. And one thing I do is I'll check out the height here. This is a little taller than I want for this arrangement. Personally, maybe this is the right, or I think this is the right thing to do. Again, not a trained florist. Is if I see that these leaves are going to be below the water line, I just simply pluck them off, because all it's going to do is make your water all murky and ugh. Now some leaves will be below the water, it's fine, but it's an easy thing to kind of check that as you go, and check that as you go so that you don't have just a lot of plant material getting mucked up in the water. Now I'm looking at this arrangement and thinking I want it to be kind of this shape. I tend to like really kind of fecund, lush, roundish sort of arrangements. So I'm trimming this so that you can see it's actually kind of coming to the same distance out from the vase as the greens here. So I've got two of these, and again I'm using symmetry on my side and pulling the leaves off the bottom, and now I've got two of these green guys. That's a little, well, let's see. You don't have to be super precise with it. I do tend to get a little futzy. Yeah, that's okay. But I've got 5 branches of the leafy stuff. I've got 2 of these guys opposite each other. Now I'm going to think of filler to go this way, because you can see right now we've got this nice big gap in the center. So in this case, I'm going to grab these really branchy leafy guys, trim them off, trim off the bottom few leaves, and see what we get if we use these in the center. All right. Now, I'm not sure how well this will show up on camera, but right now I'm designing for the arrangement to be facing me, and I created this. When I put this one in, it's a little bit higher. Now what I'm working on is to actually put the second one in, the one that's closer to me, a little lower, so that it kind of creates this nice frame with some of this in the front and some of this in the back. And that one was too tall, so it's going to get trimmed down, and I'll place it here. But now, again, if this shows up on camera, this front one is shorter and this back one is taller, so that we're creating some depth in the arrangement. But really, again, my first step is really getting in all that filler. This is all the stuff that makes it feel really lush and thick. Now, and right now, it's all primarily green. Let's do, I think we'll do the daisies next. Oh, let's put in this guy. So I think this is the last thing that's only leafy, which is this kind of branch that's got some much smaller leaves on it, and I can tell it's a little broken here at the, it's got a kind of a break here. It looks like it's okay. But I'm going to place this. Now I only have one of these, so this is something that's going to be asymmetrical. That's okay. So one of the great things about flower arranging is it's organic material. So it is, you know, there's going to be stuff that shapes one way or another, but that kind of created kind of a V shape, so I kind of placed that in the middle as a nice new texture in the center of the arrangement. So now, this is what I sort of consider the base of the arrangement. We've got all the greens, we're getting kind of the right scale going here, and there's a lot of great textures going on, so it's not just one thing. And again, you can do this once with one single bouquet. In this particular case, I picked two and go from there. So now I'm going to bring in these yellow guys, these yellow daisies, and again, because it's again more of the branchy stuff, all these branches now are creating that frog in a way in our vase. So again, a frog, traditionally it's usually two different things. It's either a piece of metal, like a disc of metal with spikes coming off of it, that when you're making an arrangement you would actually push the stems into, and then the flowers would stay in place. Another version of that is basically, imagine kind of a domed basket that has crisscross wires, and then that gives you these gaps to place the stems in. In both of these cases, and also if you use floral foam, all three of those are helping you get really precise with where you place your flowers. Now, again, what I like to do is crisscross those stems, because that's sort of creating a frog. Because now that I've got all this going on in here, I can get more specific in where something goes, because they will sort of be anchored in place by the stems that are already there. Again, I just go along and I've got these two daisies, and one of these was a little beaten up. This guy was a little beaten up. So again, I'm gonna kind of cheat that particular flower so that this guy isn't like facing straight out. And these guys, well, this guy's a little crunchy. So again, you can just, you know, keep looking at each piece that you have and being selective about where you place it, because you can, because we are arranging. And arranging makes me so happy, because I'm that kind of person who likes to make things look very composed and beautiful. So this is, I learned flower arranging from my mom growing up. We always had fresh flowers. It may not have been really expensive flowers or a lot of flowers, but it was definitely a huge part of my growing up that I was extremely thankful for. So it's one of those things where, you know, even in lean times, I usually would have some kind of flowers around. We got this one little carnation, you know, I'm just adding it, just giving it a space. So now, if I face this towards you, you can see we've got this nice symmetry of this yellow here. This guy, actually, I might just keep and tuck somewhere else. It kind of feels a little lost there. We're just adding the next element. And I do believe I am now going to add, see, I'm trying to decide whether I add the pink eyes next or the giant kale. So let's see what the kale looks like in here. So I'm kind of shimmying. This has got a really thick stem. So I'm just, oh, that's too tall. I know, I think it's blocking me too. So this is, I trimmed down that kale stem, and right now it just feels like it's big and it's just like pointing up to the ceiling, so you don't really get a sense of the gorgeous pattern that you see inside. So I'm going to see what I can do about that. So gently, I'm going to pull this guy out. And one is I can kind of tip it by angling it in the vase, and two, I can make it shorter. So let's see if I can chew through this giant stem with my old scissors. So now it's shorter, and I'm also going to try to angle it, because again, I want us to see what's happening inside that gorgeous. See, now it's a little weird. It's coming out much really forward from everything else in the vase. So this would be the side view of the arrangement. You can see it's pitched out, and here it's still kind of really huge. So what I'm trying to do, again, we'll see if it works, is to get a sense of like being able to see into this guy. And this is also a nice thing you can see about flower arranging is it's not like, the only issue is cutting stems too short too soon. You can always take a little bit off of the stem, see if it works, and if it's still too long, you take a little bit more off. But always, in this case, err on the side of trimming too little because it can be adjusted later. But again, it's not like something that's set in stone. It's super organic, it's super flexible. So I think this is actually way more forgiving and friendly of a craft or a hobby or a thing than a lot of other things, because it's pretty darn flexible. So now I'm hoping that this lower level will fit there. And again, I'm trying to sneak this so that it angles, kind of wiggling it in so that it angles here. Oh, now I'm getting really close. I'm still going to trim more. And got to be careful because it's big and it's kind of getting caught up in those other stems. So you can always just be kind of gentle. Now that I know these scissors work, I'm like, I'm just going to keep going. And, all right. And it smells like kale. It smells really yummy. Personally, I'm somebody, I've never had a really, really, really strong sense of smell. So for me, a lot of times choosing flowers is much more about the shape and the color and not the smell. So other folks, that's, totally where it's at for them. So now you can see that's gotten a lot shorter than it was before. But again, because I want it to kind of nestle down in here so that we can see into that gorgeous, gorgeous piece of vegetation. And I'm even just playing with it a little bit with my fingers to kind of spread out those leaves. Oh my gosh, now it's awesome. So now, whoops, that guy broke off. It happens. Now look at that. Look at that super gorgeous, 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 beautiful sort of, giant rows of kale. And this is so pretty because it's got the white and it's got the itty bitty bits of green along the edges. Now it's like, ta-da, it's done. So now that I've got this really strong centerpiece here, now I'm going to be building out a little taller because I want to kind of frame this. This is going to do its own thing here, sort of in the front lower part of the arrangement. Now I'm thinking like, how can I kind of bring out some other textures fanning out from this as the centerpiece? And because this is so big, and I'm looking at what I have left, I do think I'm going to set these pink guys aside. I feel like there's enough other things going on in this arrangement that these can be their own vase. And my studio is above a business where they take breaks outside. So if you hear conversation downstairs, those are the employees downstairs taking smoke breaks behind the building. That's not a whole lot I can do about this other than getting up way early, which is not my forte. So, yeah, let's do these tall guys. So now we've got these tall, skinny guys. These will be great at creating that sense of like movement and spray out from this arrangement, from what we have here. Now in this case, this is a great time to count. I've got 5 of these. So I can think, I don't want to get really rigid and do, so if I've got 5 of these tall stems, I don't necessarily want to do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 where they're like perfectly evenly arranged, because that's just not how stuff grows. But I sort of think of, if I've got 5, I'll have like a pair here and a pair here, and then a 5th one sort of, arranged from there. And this is the kind of compositional stuff that, I know backwards and forwards. So I know that for me, I do a lot of it automatically, but it's a lot of just thinking of numbers and geometry and thinking, okay, and symmetry. Thinking, okay, I'll place this going over here. You can always kind of just hold it up until you think like, oh, that's pleasing. I like the way that looks. So first I'm just putting 2 in opposite each other. And I do arrange it so that I get this gorgeous kind of S curve coming off of my, if you can see that, it's a little hard with the darker background here. This little S curve that goes off of the arrangement. I'm really excited about this kale. You will see this photo in my Instagram. And one thing I tend to do is once I make an arrangement, because I know not everyone has the funds or the practice of, or interest, honestly, in flower arranging, I often post my arrangements and then I encourage you to tag friends who could use a nice bouquet. So that is, please share those photos, because you may not be in the same room as the flowers, but I would still love for you to enjoy them because they bring me so much joy. So now you can see here we've got four of these long tall guys. You've got 2 on here and 2 on here, and they're not like perfectly the same height, and they're not perfectly spaced from each other. And that's what we're going for, is there's a sense of pleasing composition without it being rigid. You know, again, a lot of times with this, I said it was geometry. I should be a little careful because you tend to think of shapes as either being organic or geometric. And if it's organic, it's, you know, a little, it's, you know, it's loose, it's squishy, things aren't really rigid. And when I think geometric, I think, you know, like a square having very clear right angles. Everything with flower arranging, you're thinking of balance, pleasing composition, a great mix of shapes, a great mix of colors, but not trying to make it really, really, really rigid. Some folks do create things that are a little more specific, but you know, definitely I want the flowers to continue looking like they are a bit wild in a garden. Now here, again, I don't want it to be perfectly arranged, so I might do kind of 3 on one side and 2 on the other. Yeah, I like that. So now I've got these 2, which got a little distance from each other, these 2 which are closer, and this third one which is a little farther apart. Again, this is the kind of thing where you just kind of play with it and see where you go. But the biggest thing is that just by separating out your pieces and arranging them this way, you know, sorting them out to seeing like what's filler, what's accent, you know, what's your focal point, thinking in those categories and then adding them to the vase and adding them in the sense of crisscrossing things and balancing things out is going to go super far. From making it look like you just plunked a bouquet in a vase to making it really look like an arrangement. So now I'm getting really excited about this arrangement because I've got this gorgeous round shape here in the front with the kale, and then I've got this beautiful height created with those long guys, whatever they are. And I only have a few things left. Again, I'm going to set those pink guys aside just because I don't... I feel like it's just going to be too much. Once I got that kale in there, that took up so much beautiful space. But I will use what I have here as some sort of like a backdrop kind of filling in around here. So that's what is going to happen with what is left here. So we'll take this lily, this giant lily, and I'm not sure if this lily's going to open or not. It looks like this guy already opened and lost its petals. But this is one thing to think about, is when you have flowers that aren't open yet, you know, do they have space to open, and what is it going to look like once they open up? So put this kind of back in center. This gorgeous big green guy. It's just such a great texture. Let's tuck this over here. Oh, it's nice. All right, that's nice. Now, what I did was I put the lily here on the left. I put this green guy over here on the right, and I'm thinking, you know, this is a pretty full shape, so this is another kind of full shape. I'll probably put that on the left to go along with the full shape that we've got on the right. So again, you're thinking general terms. What kind of shapes are we working with? What kind of textures? And that helps you get that kind of pleasing composition. And so that now is, if you can see it here, we've got the green shape here, this branchy shape here, and even though it's not perfectly symmetrical because they're not the same thing, it gives you a nice balance. Now this is my second favorite thing out of all of this bouquet, and it's these little buttony white guys. And I think I want it to kind of live tucked above here. If this was the kind of plant that had stronger branches, I might actually break this apart into two pieces. I probably could. The issue is that this is tall enough that, like for instance, imagine if I broke this off into two pieces like this. This stem would not be very tall. Let's see, maybe I should try it. I'm thinking of, I can kind of maybe put, if I can break this into two, I can put a little accent here and here in the front. So I'm kind of debating between whether it goes in the back, where you can see it, or that way. Let's see. Let's tuck it back here and see what we get first. Again, we're not cutting it short because it lets us try something and see what happens. So now I've just put it straight in the back. It's actually not bad. I think I might trim it down a little bit. But basically, I just kind of plop that in the center, and it gives you this little bit of a bridge between these left tall guys and these right tall guys. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it. Although I don't think I cut the bottom of this one. Do I tug it out? Yes, I do. I did not cut it. So I just pulled it gently out of the arrangement so that I could trim it into a angle. And sometimes what will happen is if you have an arrangement and it's starting to look a little worn, you can always, like a lot of times people think, oh, if a couple flowers look bad, then the arrangement's done. No, just take out the things that have died, trim down the stems of what's remaining again. So again, it gives it a fresh cut so that the flowers can drink the water, and rearrange them. So some things are going to last longer than other things. It's not like they're, perfectly calibrated to all die at the same time. So that's an option to you. And now all I have left is one little stray carnation stem. I've got my two gorgeous billy balls, and then this beautiful calla lily. Again, I think it's calla lily. And now I'm just thinking, like, okay, where are spaces in here that I can tuck these guys to just give it a little more visual interest. And also I want to make sure that my stems are really going into where the water will be once it gets full. Sometimes you can push down and you think you're at the bottom of the glass, and instead you're just stuck on another flower. Something to watch out for. Because certainly if these don't have enough water to drink, they will not last. This calla lily is awfully pretty. Just trying to get the right angle on it, the right length. Kind of tuck it over here. And this is really doable. So if you're watching me and you're like, Brandy can do this. Now granted, I've got a lot of experience with it. I've been doing it a long time. Again, not a professional. Please, if you're a florist and I'm doing things incorrectly, like especially for helping this stuff, these flowers last longer, comment, let me know. I can always use more pointers. But here what I did is I made this calla lily. So again, we back up a couple steps. I put this really bushy green guy here, and I kind of counterpointed it with these berries, because it's a nice round bushy shape. This is green, this is kind of like this light yellow. I decided to place this calla lily on this side because of that kind of interplay of yellow, yellow, bushy, bushy. Again, I'm thinking very simply in halves. Again, symmetry. And lastly, I get to put my favorites in, these billy balls. And what's great about these is they're such great verticals with like a punctuation mark on the top. So often I will let these, like, not trim very much off of them at all, because I want them to keep their verticality. So, oops, they ricochet across the table. So again, I only have two. I don't want them to be like, just look like antenna, especially if there's just two, because clearly they'd be really good at that if that's in frame. I think that's in frame. But you know, so instead I'm thinking like, you know, can I kind of group them as an accent off to the side? So let's tuck those here. Again, I'm trying to keeping an eye out to make sure that it is ending up low enough here in the vase that it will get water and we'll be able to drink. And now, ta-da, we have the completed bouquet. So you can see that there's some symmetry going on, there's some balance, but there's definitely, you're definitely look again, you're splitting out the flowers that come in the bouquets into what are the colors, what are the shapes. And to a certain extent, the shape means what are the functions. So is it kind of that base layer of filler? Is it something that has a strong vertical? Is it something that is an accent? And is it something that's a focus? So in this particular arrangement, the filler, again, we have this kind of ragweedy little tiny yellow guys. We've got all these leafy greens that we started with. We have the alamestra here on the side. So those I would call, in this arrangement, I would call all those the fillers. That was kind of that base that creates kind of a crown or a collar to the bottom side of the arrangement. For accent, we've got the bushy green guy, the calla lily, these daisies because they've got that nice bright color, although they are kind of shaped like filler. These berries, I would call, and this white, this lovely white up here, I would call that the accents. In this one, the verticals very clearly are these guys and these guys. And then, oops, I just knocked all the pink guys off the table. So I get tiny little studio table. But again, the focus, the real shining star of this particular arrangement is this gorgeous, gorgeous kale. So I made sure that I gave it a great location in the bouquet so that we can ooh and ah and enjoy all of its beauty with all of its neighbors. So that is just a demonstration of flower arranging. I may do another video like this before again. You know, you guys let me know if this is interesting to you, but it's certainly something that brings me a lot of joy. In this particular case, these flowers are from Whole Foods. The two arrangements were $16 each, and I think these guys were $6. So in this case, it was $38. Not the cheapest amount for a bouquet by any means. I know that, you know, at my, I live here in Chicago, there's another chain called Jewel. You can often get three bouquets for $12. So maybe I'll do another video with that kind of thing where I'm thinking, okay, if I'm just picking three bouquets, but they're not mixed bouquets like this. Usually it's like one type of flower. So maybe I'll do another video like that where you can pick 3 different things, but be thoughtful again about the color and the shape and the function. And that can be a $12 bouquet that can look out of sight. So again, I do know that this is, you know, at just under $40. It's not like the cheapest arrangement ever, but man, boy, the amount of joy it brings me, hopefully the joy it brings others when I post the photo and people share it. And certainly there's the longevity, in my case, there's the longevity of the joy that this will now hang out in shots in my videos, that the folks watching the videos can enjoy and I can enjoy seeing again and again. So the last thing I'll do, now you can see this water level didn't rise a whole lot, but a little bit, and now the last thing I'm going to do is going to make sure I fill the vase, not to the tippy top, but probably to about here, if you can see that, about maybe an inch below the top edge of the vase. And a big thing with flowers is make sure that, let's say it 3 times, 4 times, you make sure that that you keep filling the water. It's really sad if you put all this time and money and effort into creating an arrangement and then you simply don't water it enough and it goes badly quickly. So again, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, a hobbyist, not a professional, but by all means, let me know if you enjoyed this and you'd like to see something like this again. And ta-da! Wherever you are, happy, happy, happy. Whatever makes you happy. In my case, is flower arranging. One of many things, but definitely flower arranging.